The first rumor is out about a Jaguars possible target in free agency. We'll corner all the markets and talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
She's correct. It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars, and we thank you for making us your first listen. We appreciate you joining us. I'm going to let you know that wherever you get your podcasts, whether you watch them or listen to them, make sure you tap into that location each and every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And shout out to the everydayers who join us each and every day here on the Locked On Jaguars podcast. We appreciate you. And if it's your first time, I really hope I give you a reason to come back. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about combine news and notes, some risers and fallers, if that's the real case, and some things that were absolutely evident at the combine that I think are pertinent and relevant to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The free agency positions to consider if the things that happen, if the thing happens that I think may happen because of rumors, all of the positions that the Jaguars might attack or the things that they might wait to see in the draft. And what cornerback Carlton Davis, the rumored interest the Jaguars have in him, what does that mean for the immediate future for the Jaguars and long term? We'll discuss that here in just a second. So, yeah, that's where we'll pick up and start. Of course, I'll say this with a grain of salt, and this is almost a disclaimer. Anything you hear right now is just a rumor. Nothing more, nothing less, right? But it's very interesting that it was coming from the Detroit Lions side of the media, and it may have also been started by maybe an agent or two. We never really know how these things work. But sometimes where there's smoke, there is fire. Carlton Davis, the cornerback, the man-to-man, the tough, the long physical corner that played for the Detroit Lions last year, was with Tampa prior to that, is considered a guy that's a person of interest and rumored to be connected to the Jaguars. What would that mean for Jacksonville? That would mean that they would be going out and signing a free agent to a pretty decent deal. I heard the number at about $14 million average per year or whatever, while they also have Tyson Campbell under contract for that matter. Now, so it'll be a way to measure how they actually structure those deals and make them friendly. But this isn't like they got a $90 million corner here, right? So you can go $90 million in a rookie, or you can go $60 million and $50 million or whatever, and have it kind of be the same thing. Because my rule of thought has always been, when you allocate funds for a certain position, you actually want one guy on a rookie deal, one guy on a big deal. They can structure this a certain way, though, because they didn't really break the bank for Tyson Campbell, but the way that the deal could be structured could also be beneficial to the Jaguars, just having another guy on the other side. Instead of trying to mix it and match it, they're saying, here, this is what we have. It also could signal that the Jaguars may not be interested in trading for Jair Alexander, who has been injured for the most of the last 2 years, and that would just be a thing that's based on potential. So we'll have to take a look at that also. But what it would do if the Jaguars did go in that direction is it would take corner as an immediate need off the board. It would also give them an aggressive, physical, man-to-man type corner for the defense that Anthony Campanile wants to run. And if you're asking me, is there a connection between those two? Not really, but if you listen to Anthony Campanile when he did his interview, when he met the media, he talked about how you have a book on a guy, and then he also discussed how there were times when he cross-evaluated because of studying the opponent's tape, and that's how they come up with, books that they get on a guy mentally in their head. So I would suspect by them playing Detroit twice last year and preparing for him, also he's played Tampa since he was in Miami before that. He understands and knows exactly who Carlton Davis is. There's possibly even a chance that last year when Davis was a free agent that Green Bay actually had him on the list of guys that they really, really wanted. So there may be some knowledge. Also, James Gladstone. How many times has he running to Carlton Davis, and he had a chance to look at him when he was with the Rams. I'm sure that they have played the Rams multiple times while James Gladstone was the coach, they being either Detroit Lions or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So this is really a pro personnel move and a pro personnel decision to find a player like this that fits their system. I think it would be a good move. I'm not opposed to it at all. I did, however, on previous shows talk about how important it is to have a mix of guys, salary-wise, and where they are in the structure of your salary, how it's important to have a mix of those guys. But this would give them two corners that are really, really sort of built alike and that can play alike and can be bookends on both sides of the ball. So I still wouldn't think that they would be done in that area or the area of the secondary. I think if the Jaguars really, really do decide that they're going to sign Carlton Davis, with Jarian Jones and with some of the young guys that they have behind them, I think that will really set up well. I saw that Trayvon Diggs was a dude that people may think is going to be on the market because Dallas is looking to move on from him. Also, with him and Jair Alexander, it depends exactly what these teams are asking for. But you'll have three guys. Carlton Davis will be a straight-up free agent, and those other two that I just mentioned. The Jaguars could seemingly, if they want a veteran, they have a chance to pick from those guys. The free agency positions to consider after the combine, we've seen what those guys have done. I don't think a whole bunch of decisions were made or changed because of what you saw in Indianapolis last week. We will discuss that, though, but we're going to stay on free agency here for the time being. We'll make sure that we tap into all of that here in segment 2 on Locked On Jaguars. Hang tight. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. And when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no place better to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to be on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into same game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment in the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3. I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. That's right away. No reason to be waiting. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, moving along here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. If I did not tell you that when we first began today's show, the free agency positions to consider. Cornerback, let's just assume for the sake of this show that the Jaguars do move to a veteran cornerback. That would then mean that you could now look at the other positions. And I'm going to tell you what it means for the draft also, okay? It would signal to me that the Jaguars coaches don't believe that this team is anywhere where it was in 2021, where they had to totally start all over from scratch. I think I can actually believe their words when they say, look, we got some positions here that we really, really like. The more positions that you address with guys that you're sure about, that's when you can start leaning more in the draft for best player available. It does not mean that they don't want to onboard guys. It does not mean that dudes chosen on the first and second round or the first and second day are not people that they hope are instant successes or can help the team instantly. I think the Jaguars with this new regime, I don't think they're going to be slow with it. I think they're going to be very, very inviting because of the idea that they have that they're going to go out and get guys that can just come in and be themselves and do exactly what it is that they already do. And the Jaguars aren't looking at this player procurement like, come in here, we'll change you. Well, we see your potential, so come in and no. What they're trying to do is, I believe that they believe that there are a lot of players out there that can come in just as they are, whether it be through free agency or the draft. And instead of changing them to fit whatever narrative that already existed here with Jacksonville, they'll say, no, you're coming, we're paying you because there's something that you have that is tangible for us. And we want you to do that thing to help us get to where we're going. So that's the reason I believe the onboarding part of this can be very, very successful, is because they're not going out trying to change people and fit them into their culture, which for all of us that are concerned, it's a culture that doesn't exist anyway, right? People say that, and then you got to understand, okay, what is your culture? Do you win all the time? No. I think this gets them to the point of, even though the culture hasn't been established, they know inherently what it is. They know exactly who they want to be. They understand as a football team what it takes to be, to get to where they want to be. And they're going out and finding players that already have those qualities, that already have a lot of the characteristics they're looking for, and they want to plug them right in and say, be that. Whatever it is we signed you up for, be that. And I really, really do believe that's exactly where they're headed, considering their words and their actions and the way that they go about their business. And that could be a real good reason to have the attitude they have about making sure that they get guys that are intangibly rich, that match the ecosystem. More than anything else, more than teaching them how to be pros, more than just, it's almost like, nah, man, we're just going to bring you in here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to let you be what you are. And then we're going to show you how that fits in and how important that is to what we're trying to do as a whole. So what does it mean? It means that the corner position will probably be done. If they have their first, second, they have cornerback 1, cornerback 2, and then they have the slot already. Now it's about depth. So if you see something in the draft, best player available in the 3rd round, he's a guy that you had a 2nd round grade on, snatch him and pull him up into the, you can't have too many of those dudes, right? If there's a veteran out there that's willing to be a 3rd corner or come in as a veteran and compete, and understand that guys get hurt and you'll have a chance to play. Almost the way the teams in the last couple of years have used a guy like James Bradbury. Like, you're too good to be out there. Come in. If you get hurt, you get hurt. But the more the merrier that we have on the back end. And maybe if they start playing with the lead, you'll see them in more dimes. So you'll get all of those guys on the field together, kind of the way Baltimore does in a lot of their situations, where you're thinking like, do they have 5 corners on the field? Yeah, sometimes they do. I think it's a big deal. I also think it's a big deal that they signal that we're going to shore up the back end, that's a commitment also to the front 7 and mainly the front 4 and having to rush the quarterback. I still believe that the defensive tackle position, safety, is going to be a big one. And we talked about the guys that are available for them at the safety position. Look, man, I'm going to be honest with y'all. In segment 3, I'm going to tell y'all there's a safety. I don't even know how to say his name very well, but I'm going to try. I think he fits really, really good with the Jaguars. Okay, I'm going to give you a hint. It's a kid out of South Carolina, but we'll get to that in just a second. But now, the other free agency positions to consider. If they nail the corner position down, I really, really believe. I don't think they're going to – I would not think that they'll go out there and jump out the window at wide receiver. This sounds to me like the Jaguars are hell-bent on fixing that offensive line exactly how they said. I think that there's a possibility that they also get a veteran edge rusher to come in and compete right away, maybe someone that they're extremely familiar with, maybe Preston Smith, someone like that, who, even though he got traded away from Green Bay, I think that was more of a positional thing, and it was also more of a, well, he's about to be a free agent, and we got some other people that can already do that. Do they go back and tap into that? Do they look into a guy like Jadavian Clowney, who has always been the dude that signs late, but maybe gives you a little bit of veteran presence on the end? Do they look into a Hassan Reddick, who is a pure pass rusher and a 3rd down guy? Do they go to a guy like Khalil Mack and say, look, man, we ain't even trying to make you an every down player. We're making you a situational player on this team. We'll give you $10 million over the next 2 years just to be a veteran and a guy that these guys can lean on. All of these things are now into play. I think if you fix that corner position and then you double dip and fix the front, because the corner position will affect that front in a big way, I think those are things that the Jaguars can look at. I do think that they're good at running back, with the exception of finding a third guy who can be a competitor. I think tight end is something that they're probably going to look at also because of the way that they run their team. They will add a running back because they do have some sets where they use two running backs, and right now they only really have two that they can depend on. But to me, all signs in free agency point towards getting veteran help on the interior of the offensive line, and also developing or having some resources where you get a veteran help with guys that can come in and shake up. Let's just say if you're going to keep 9 or 10, guy that can come in and be your swing guy, and he's automatically your 7th or your 8th best lineman. I think they're going to also change the profile of the offensive line, right? Guys that can get out and move in space. The Jaguars really, really confused me when it came to their offensive line, because their offensive linemen are really, they're athletic. They're athletic, but they aren't necessarily the type of guys that are big. Now, I say this relative. I'm looking at the Philadelphia Eagles and I'm thinking like, okay, everybody's huge, right? The smallest guy is like 305, 6'3", 3, that's Cam Jurgens, but everybody else is 325, 330. And I think back to when Liam Cohen said, they're going to see us when we break the huddle. That just doesn't mean getting a bunch of fat people. That means seeing them and knowing, oh, there's that guy. Because Drew Dahlman, the dude that I keep talking about in free agency, he's not that big, but he looks imposing, and he plays imposing in the running game. The other guys, Will Freeze is 6'5", 6'6", 300, 305. He ain't that big, but he is a bruising, punishing run player, right? Guys like Alaric Jackson from the Rams were taken off of the market, and I don't know if the Jaguars were really thinking about investing in $50 million in a tackle, considering that they have the two that they do have. I'm interested to see how they feel about Anton Harrison. Most coaches feel like whatever you're seeing from a guy, they can actually fix it if there's something wrong. And Walker Little, if they believe that, I don't think they think a guy like that is beyond repair. I think he looks the part. He's a big physical dude. They'll probably just make some adjustments. But don't be surprised now if they get guys who have experience playing tackle that in a moment in the draft, they can push them outside. Whether that be Will Campbell up high, I don't think that's going to happen. It could very well. Will Campbell said he'll play right guard, left guard. It doesn't matter. In fact, he even said, if you need me at right guard, I'll do that if it gets me on the field. Well, the Jaguars have a hole at right guard, and they're sitting there at number 5. So there are a lot of people that have mixed opinions on Will, whether he's a guard or a tackle. But he has played at an extremely high level. So has Kelvin Banks. Kelvin Banks didn't run worth a damn at the combine, but I don't think anybody expected a dude 6'4", 335 pounds to run. Tyler Booker didn't run at all, didn't work out real well. Well, he ran, but almost like he didn't run at all. They were both extremely slow. I don't need my guards running 30, 40 yards down the field. I just need them to move people out of the way in a 5-yard window. That's all I need them to do. Can you get over here? Do you have side-to-side lateral quickness? Can you get out there, and can you knock people over? That's what I actually need. My man Jackson out of Ohio State. And I've talked about him a lot. He's another one that looked like a ballerina out there. Make no mistake about it, whatever the Jaguars don't decide to do in free agency, there will be some people in the draft that can really, really help them. We'll give you some combine notes, and we'll talk about that. Movers and shakers and positions that look really, really fruitful. We'll talk about it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Movers, shakers in the NFL draft combine. Now, I know that people will look at the combine and think, okay, well, this guy went up, that guy did, and this guy didn't. I can assure you that the NFL guys don't look at it that way. The Rams didn't even go to the combine. They sent their doctors, because I'll remind you that the combine is really something that really started because of medical. So you can get all the doctors in one place, so these dudes aren't going to 32 teams getting picked and prodded, right? They're taking the physicals. Everybody's there. I'm not saying most doctors think alike, because if that was the case, they just have one doctor for the whole league. But for the most part, you can get done what you need to get done, right? So I saw all of the dudes. No one really, really, really disappointed me in terms of how they worked out. We ain't gonna talk about the quarterback position because I'll leave that to the Titans because they're the team that's really, really looking for quarterback right now. But I saw why Ohio State won the championship with their representation. I saw why Texas got as far as they did with their speed on offense and with their overall representation. There were some dudes though that made me. I mean, I almost fell out of my seat. Now I hope I say this name correctly. Armand Membu. I saw him at the Senior Bowl. I always wondered. Some people said that he would be 6'2". Then I heard he was 6'2" and a half. Then I heard he was 6'3" and a half. Well, he was measured right underneath 6'4", right at 6'4", 322 pounds. And let me tell you something. Dude is a people mover. He is a people mover out of Missouri. The thing is where do you rank him? Some people think he's a right tackle. Some people think he can play anywhere along the line. You just pick him and put him on the field. He is a very good player. Gray Zabel can continue to be someone that his stock has risen. He's every bit of 6'6", probably about 315 pounds, can really, really move around, can play extremely well, has positional versatility. If the Jaguars don't, a lot of people project him as a center, but he can definitely play guard on either side. He's just a good kid to have in your lineup. I don't know if he makes it to the top of the second round where the Jaguars are picking. They may have to get a little bit busy and try to move up a little bit. But lots of guys on the offensive line. Tyler Booker, who I had told was going to be a top 20 pick. I don't know if he hurt himself or not at 6'5", 325 pounds and not looking extremely athletic. But like I said, don't get a wedgie worried about that because the tape is where it's going to matter the most for him. But those Ohio State players, Donovan Jackson, slipped a little bit post combine, but when you watch the tape, that kind of versatility, let me tell you what happens with a guy like Donovan Jackson. Y'all keep playing around and he ends up with a team like Philadelphia, Baltimore, and I keep mentioning those teams because they make a living off of the mistakes of other people. Donovan Jackson is going to be a dude that's going to play for 12 years. He's going to see half of those years as a Pro Bowl and maybe some even as an All-Pro. Those are the kind of guys that you really, really do want to grab a hold of. A fast, sturdy running back to be the third runner, and it's very, very much important in Liam Cohen's offense that guy catches the ball and is a willing blocker. There are a boatload of them in the draft. So I would expect that the Jaguars were very, very happy with what they saw from that group. Investing in your wide receiver room for the future and for the present. There's a body type that matches everything that the Jaguars could possibly need, Teteroa McMillan, Tet McMillan from Arizona looks the part, man. He didn't run the 40, but when you watch that tape and you imagine him, whatever he lacks in speed, and I'm not saying he's slow because we'll see what he runs, but if you look at him and don't think he's very fast, he makes up for it with catch radius and he makes up for it with his ability to run routes. And it is hard not to imagine. And he mentioned Brian Thomas Jr. as one of the 5 best receivers in the league. It's hard to imagine a guy like that not being someone that this coaching staff looks at and goes, oh, we need some of that, man. I always believe in looking at people in tandems. Brian Thomas Jr. plus Tet gets them a little bit closer. And it doesn't mean that I'm saying that they don't need a third and a fourth receiver. It just means in their base and when they're driving for a game-winning drive, being a two wide receiver team, there's nothing wrong with it if both guys are very, very good. Look at Philly, look at Cincinnati, look at other teams, Minnesota, to where if they got 2 really, really good receivers, you're still doubling. You're still trying to figure out who to take out of it. And that's why the running backs and their ability to catch, the offensive line, all you got to do when there's only 2 guys in the route, the offensive line has to protect a little longer. And that's why it's important that the Jaguars are going to fix that. But running backs that can catch the ball and then having a complete tight end, not just a pass-catching tight end, someone that can pass catch and block, a dual threat. They've already mentioned how they see a role for Brenton Strange in their system, getting even bigger and better. He can do both. He showed that last year. All of those things are super, super, super duper important. And then whoever they decide will be the third receiver, whether it's another running back to help with pass protection, or if they have a running back that really, really makes people miss, they can get him the ball on 3rd and 6. If he gets the ball on a one-on-one 4 yards out, he can shake and bake and make people miss like Bucky Irvin did last year and end up with that first down. The options are out there. If the Jags address the corner position, then touch that free agency on that offensive line, then it starts to get to a point where you're really, really looking at this, and they're saying, we can move back, we can take Tet, we can take Campbell, we can go back just a little bit, get another bite at the apple in the 2nd or 3rd round. There's a lot of things at play here, for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I love the fact that it's going to be players over plays. It's going to be what they do well right now over potential. I just think the options are very, very good. And I've wondered, what will they address in free agency? So that's why I'm hanging on to this rumor. And right now, all it is a rumor about Carlton Davis. But to know that both Jair Alexander and Trayvon Diggs are out there and possibly available for next to nothing, I think it's a good thing. I do believe when it comes to the wide receiver position, and people are saying, why couldn't they give up a 5th for Deebo Samuel? That tells me that they either have a plan for Gabe Davis or that they feel like at this stage what they really, really need to do is go young and look into the draft, maybe keep the guys that they already have. If you go out and get Deebo Samuel, I'm not one of those people that's mad or going to sit here and complain about the fact that Deebo doesn't run as fast. Deebo's a football player. There's a good friend of mine that he harps on speed. He's one of the best in the business, but he harps on speed a lot. Me and him argued for 10 years about Anquan Boldin. Anquan Boldin was in the Super Bowl catching balls and had probably over 600 catches and 10,000 yards, and that dude's still talking about the fact that Anquan Boldin couldn't run. I don't care. Sometimes you just need a football player, man. You need people, and Deebo Samuel is just that. But I'm not mad at the Jaguars for not going in that direction because I think they have another plan. And even with Deebo Samuel being available, they didn't change. They stayed on course. And I'm interested to see what they do. So Carlton Davis, or the prospect of adding Carlton Davis, can start to make you shift where you think the Jaguars will go. If they sign Carlton Davis, I'm not saying that they wouldn't take Travis Hunter, but that would mean that they're going to play. If they took Travis Hunter, he'd play on defense, where he'd play on offense primarily, and then he'd be the slot. So therefore, that's something that you have to look at. Or could they still, even if they took Carlton Davis and they made some other things, could they still draft Travis and make him a slot corner? Make him a starting slot corner that you just can't bring. Oh, man, I can't even think about that. That you don't. Maybe he splits a little time with Jadavian Jones, but he's the slot corner, and then you use him more on offense. If they do that, they could really use him both ways, more than if he's just a starting outside corner. All of that stuff is something that we need to continue to look at and consider. Pay attention to the rumors. Don't hang on them, but where there's smoke, sometimes there is fire. We'll continue to talk more about this, talk all week about winners and losers at the Combine in terms – we're going to do this just strictly from the vision, the lens, as James Gladstone says, and from the prism and perspective of Jaguar fans. We don't care about the rest of the league when I do the Jaguars podcast. We only care about the Jaguars. We'll continue to go through that. We'll talk about guys who won, lost, guys that I think might fit, body types, and all of that all week long here on Locked On Jaguars. So make sure you tap in. Also tap into Locked On NFL. If you want to hear a broader approach to the NFL, that's what you get, and you get it twice a day. Tyler Rowland, the madman, early in the morning with a double shot of espresso. And then you come through here. We drink espresso sometimes too, but sometimes we drink a little something else too while we do these podcasts. But either way, you'll get the news that you need every day with Locked On NFL. So make sure you tap in wherever you get your podcast. All right, man. Thanks to you guys. Thanks to FanDuel, our sponsor for today. Make sure you take care of each other, and we'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.